All right, welcome everybody. We're just gonna wait a few seconds as people trickle in. And if anybody wants to go ahead and pop into the chat where they're from so we can see where everybody's tuning in from, that'd be great. From Georgia, from Chicago. Oh, great, we're going to Chicago here soon. That's amazing. Yes, love it. Okay, I guess we can go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's great to see so many people here. This is AMM Talks virtual series. It was created to build community between officiants and to give established wedding professionals the chance to share advice with ministers who are both new to the role and starting out. I'm Marissa. I'm the marketing and events coordinator at AMM, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host Jessica. She's our lead writer here at AMM, and she'll be helping out behind the scenes. So feel free to send her any messages in the chat if you have any technical questions. So we're both thrilled to be here and to be joined by today's speaker, officiant Rachael Tanner. Rachael is an officiant coach and founder of Officially Hitched in San Francisco. She's been officiating weddings for over 8 years and is an expert in effective public speaking and the wedding ceremony stagecraft, or the technical aspects involved in performing compelling wedding ceremonies. She's also established herself as a skilled officiant coach and works with officiants all over the country to help them develop their skills and build their businesses. So let's hear from Rachael, and then we can open things up for questions. So Rachael, go ahead and take over.
All right, thank you. Just making sure everyone can still hear me. I'm going to share my screen, and so hopefully you'll be able to see my slides in just a moment, and team will let me know if you can't. But we tested it, so it should work. Looks like it's still working. I'm very excited to be with you all today, talking about public speaking for wedding officiants and kind of an introduction to stagecraft. I would love for folks, if you can, in addition to you've shared where you're from, so great to see folks from really all over the country, which is really fun. If you can share if you are a first-time officiant, like you're getting ready to officiate your very first wedding, and that's what brought you here. Maybe you've done a few weddings, maybe you put the number there, or if you consider yourself a pro, like you know what you're doing, you've done lots of weddings before, just put in the chat, getting started, have done a few, professional officiant. We'll see kind of what we got here. Got a lot of first-timers, great. Folks getting started. None yet trying. Wedding planner turned officiant. Ooh, that's great because I think wedding planning is so hard and officiating is so much easier and more fun. So you're going to have a great new career getting started. So we got a lot of folks getting started. So I'm going to gear some of my talk towards that. And so we will have plenty of time for questions, hopefully at least 30 minutes, if not more, for question and answer. So I think you can kind of save them and we'll get to them either verbally or in the chat later on today. So you can see here just some of the weddings I've officiated over the years and my contact information, which I'll make sure that we can get these slides to if you want, and also the contact information if you want to follow up later on. So this is me at my very, very first wedding that I ever officiated for no money. I did this as a freebie because of my friends, Dan and Melissa, who are featured here, asked me to marry them. And I said yes. And I said, I'm so honored. I'm so excited. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. So as long as you're okay with that, I'm okay with that too. And I always say that I got to learn everything I know from them, and maybe not everything, but certainly the core of my business, which the core of my business is about making sure you have a wedding that fits you perfectly. From them, I got to see a Jewish and Catholic person who really weren't practicing their faiths. And so we're kind of looking around to say, what playbook do I use for my ceremony? Because weddings are one of those times where religion and culture really have a big impact. They have kind of a script of this is how you should do your wedding. And if you're not really connected to those traditions, folks are kind of like, well, what does that mean for me? And they were in that boat. They picked up a great book, Writing Your Wedding Ceremony by Christina Hernandez, which is available for like $6 on Amazon. Highly recommend. And it really walks through just the different parts of a wedding ceremony, kind of in the Western style, and helping couples make choices about what they want to do, why they might do or not do something in their wedding ceremony. And I got to watch them choose parts of each of their traditions and craft it into their wedding. And then I said, after I did it, I enjoyed it. I did a great job. I said, this is the side business at the time that I was looking for, and started my wedding business in 2017. And here I am today. So that's a little bit about me. So the basics of public speaking are here on this slide. This is not what I'm going to cover. Okay. Some basics of public speaking are eye contact, project your voice, use your diaphragm to speak loudly, talk slowly, more slowly than you might talk in normal conversation, and enunciate your words. If any of these things are unfamiliar to you, I would recommend using YouTube or other resources to find good coaching on this. The only thing I will add is if you are a wedding officiant and there is a microphone, use the microphone. If there's a microphone, it is there for a reason. The reason that it's there is so people can hear you. Your craft is entirely, well, not entirely, primarily consisting of words. So if people cannot hear your words, then they are missing your craft. And so please use a microphone. Don't think that your voice is just loud. A big pet peeve, people who have microphones and don't use them. Just was at a wedding on Saturday. People didn't use the microphone properly. Most people couldn't hear what was happening for the speeches. So first, we're going to talk about public speaking for wedding officiants. So the first thing we want to talk about is kind of really what's different, like in contrast to that slide before, which is like showing just basic things you need to do if you're going to do a presentation at work or if you're going to do a talk for somebody, right? What's different about wedding officiating is that as the officiant, you are doing more than just speaking words or delivering a message. You are creating and holding a space in which a couple is making a commitment to be partners for life. So what does that mean? That means you need to be prepared. So you should have read your script or your notes, however you're using your words, aloud to yourself several times before you arrive at the venue. And so you feel confident in what you're going to say. You don't have to memorize it, in my opinion, but you want to be very familiar so you're not reading the script the entire time. You want to arrive at least 30 minutes ahead of time, maybe even 45 or an hour. If you arrive within the 30-minute window, there's going to be a lot of activity. So if you like to have more mellow and peacefulness when you arrive, you're going to want to arrive probably an hour before the ceremony start time so you can get familiar before the guests really begin to arrive. Your presence is important from the time you arrive at the venue until the time you leave. You want to be calm. There's going to be nerves. There's going to be excitement. There's going to be things going right and things going wrong and people running around and all kinds of things happening. And you need to not get caught up in that frenzy. Your energy needs to be peaceful, calm, and grounded. The bride and groom, they can be running around because it's their wedding and there's a lot of energy that they're going to have, but your calming presence is really important. And I mention that in part because as humans, one of the things we often want to do is reciprocate energy. So if someone's really panicky, our natural instinct is going to be start panicking with them. And you have to resist that. You have to be very intentional. Oh, wait, am I talking fast? Am I running around? Am I rushing? Am I walking quickly, even though I don't need to walk quickly? So even just slowing down your pace of walking, slowing down how you're talking, bringing that frenetic energy down, and instead of matching the energy of the bride or groom or other family members who are trying to help. So that's really, really key to creating that space and holding that space. Some other things you're going to want to do, or that I would recommend, is having a mantra or an affirmation. Sometimes it's for yourself to keep yourself present and grounded. Maybe it's breathing, or just a practical reminder. This one that I have is something I say to my couples. I say, nothing can go wrong on your wedding day, as long as you two get married. And even if you don't, maybe there's a reason, but nothing can go wrong, but everything may not go as planned, right? The flowers may not have arrived on time, or somebody forgot something, or this isn't there, or there was supposed to be a little sign, but you forgot. Nothing can go wrong, but everything might not go as planned. And so having that even for myself is like, even if I mess up something, okay, but is it something that's, wrong, or is it something I can shift and I can move, and can everything still be fine? Like one time I forgot, I didn't have the vows printed. I didn't realize the couple wanted me to print their vows. They'd sent them to me to review. But I didn't have them because I didn't realize they needed me to print them. And so what did I do? I worked with the hotel venue to find a printer, and they printed them off, and it was fine because thankfully I have everything in the cloud. So I could log into my Gmail account, get them from the email, and print them out. So again, didn't go wrong, but certainly didn't plan that. Connect with your core. So connect with your why as you're delivering. This is getting a little bit more into how you're actually going to deliver. For myself, I want to be connected to spirit. For me, this is spiritual work that I do. I work with couples who are mostly not religious. Some are spiritual, some may have mixed religions. But for me, this is part of how I practice my faith. And I do that not with connecting words and practices that are religious-based or spiritual-based, but for myself, connecting with my core and my values of what do I think I'm doing? Why am I here? And what am I ushering in? So whatever your why is of why you do wedding officiating, you want to be grounded and really connected to that in a very active way. If you're into mindfulness or meditation, If you want to do whatever practices for you, connect you with that inspirational part, because you are here in part to inspire the couple and all of the guests who have gathered today for the wedding. Next, I would say lean into the drama. Now, that may not be for everybody, and depending on who you're working with, you want to match the couple's vibe and style. But again, part of what you're doing is something that they wouldn't do if they were doing it themselves. They have hired you or requested for you to officiate for them for a reason, because they want you to bring something to the table that they may not do if they were just reading the script themselves. And so you have over here on the right side, one of my new favorite poems. It's not new, but I newly discovered it. It's one of my favorite poems. This is just an excerpt from it, The Vow by Claire Shaw. And so when I'm going to read this twice, and one time I'm going to be just reading it, and the next time I'm going to do a little bit more connection. Say yes. That word on your lips is a kiss, is a promise already made. We made it. Love did not turn from hurt or hard work. When lights failed, it did not switch off. When love had no road, we willingly built it. We shouldered its stones and its dirt. So thank God there are days like this when it's easy, when we open our mouths and the words flood in. I think hopefully nice. I enunciated. I don't think I talked too fast. Probably a fine reading. That's how probably if you have a family member or friend do the reading, they'll probably do it like that because they're not a professional like you are. So you want to lean into the drama, even though it can be a little awkward and scary like this. Say yes. That word on your lips is a kiss, is a promise already made. We made it. Love did not turn from hurt or hard work. When lights failed, it did not switch off. When love had no road, we willingly built it. We shouldered its stones and its dirt. So thank God there are days like this when it's easy, when we open our mouths and the words flood in. That is the difference between just reading something and following the basics and leaning into the drama and connecting with the part of me that is inspired by what I'm reading. And I'm actually thinking about these words, thinking about, wow, love did not turn from hurt or hard work. Like, how real is that, right? And so you want to be able to really connect with it. So you're not performing, you are tapping into your actual self and then sharing that with the guests and the couple who's gathered there. Silence and pauses. General people get nervous when there's silence, especially in American culture. But you're an officiant. You're going to be comfortable with silence. You're going to be okay if someone's standing up to come do the reading and walking to the microphone and there's silence. And you're just going to watch that person as they walk up. And by you doing that, you are instructing your guests, the guests, and what they should be doing, which is just paying attention and letting the person take their time to get to the microphone. They're going to do their reading. You'll say thank you, and you'll watch them sit down. And then you'll continue with the next moment. We need to let everything breathe. So I'm not talking while the person's walking up. I'm not talking while they're sitting down, unless maybe I'm saying, let's give them a round of applause or something like that. Everything has its moment. Another thing I say to my couples is, we don't have anywhere to go. Everybody is here for this wedding. And so whatever happens, we are here for the wedding. So like, we have time. Couples will often be concerned about time. When they're concerned about time, they are thinking often, no disrespect, of a Catholic or Greek Orthodox or other Orthodox wedding ceremony that's usually an hour or 90 minutes long, and they don't want that. Usually most couples I work with are in the 20 to 30 minute range. That's like no time at all. Okay, so just let everything have its space and use silence as one of your most important tools. So what does that look like, silence? So one thing silence can look like is, I've written in this script here, pauses. Zach, do you take Stacy to be your wife, to live together in marriage? Zach says, I do. Let it breathe a little bit. Do you commit to love her, comfort her, honor and keep her, in sickness and in health, in sorrow and in joy? Do you promise to be faithful to her as long as you both shall live? Now, even if you've read these words a million times, you've got to be tapped into that freshness, right? That Zach is saying, is answering this question for the first and what he hopes is the only time in his life. So you again want to have that space, not only in between the questions, but even in the sentence. Zach, do you take Stacy to be your wife, to live together in marriage. So even this might be a place where you slow your words down even more than you might in some other sections. Like recall when I read the poem, there were some parts of the poem I read kind of fast, faster than other parts, because you don't want to be monotone and like be the same everywhere. So that's a way that you can really help to, again, make space and hold space for the couple to have that experience. Remember that you are the MC. Now, MC has become to kind of be associated with like a DJ or like somebody who's like a game show host type person, which is fine. But what are you? You're the master of the ceremony. You are leading the ceremony. If there is a wedding planner or a coordinator, that is great. They are like backstage, okay? They are like your go-to person, but they are not on stage. And so once that ceremony starts, you are leading the ceremony. Be prepared for anything to happen. Now, it doesn't mean making a laundry list of bad things that could happen, but anything could happen. And you've got to respond in real time. So this is a list of some things that have happened to me during ceremonies. It can be windy in San Francisco and California. The wind is the #1 enemy of like a great outdoor ceremony. And it's like almost always windy. So just keep that in mind if you are in California, in Northern California at least. A vase that was going to be used for like the sand ceremony, like almost blew over and fell off the thing. We had to pick it up. We had to dump the sand back in. Thank God it didn't break, but we just like rolled with it. Sun could be really hot. Everyone's melting. It could be cold. You can tell everyone's freezing. Somebody forgot the rings. There was a prop that was supposed to be up front, but it wasn't. That happened once for me. We're supposed to have this ribbon, but we'd forgotten in the back room. So we had to like adjust. I had doves get released that didn't fly away. They just kept flying around where the guests were. There was a band literally starting to play next door. This happened twice at 2 different weddings. Motorcycles driving by, really, really loud. Planes flying overhead, a lot of sounds. So what my recommendation is that this is real life. This is not a play. And this is not a rehearsal. Okay, this is actually happening right now. And so my best trick is to always acknowledge the distraction. So the other day I had a wedding, super hot, very hot. And we were all glad it was hot because it's been so cold. But it meant that a lot of the guests were sitting directly in the sun. And, you know, some of them had umbrellas and some of them didn't. And men had like long shirts and jackets on. And part of my intro, which I hadn't written because I didn't know it was going to be that hot when I wrote it, said, and you know what, we're so excited that the sun is out today and we know it's very warm. And so gentlemen, as you go forward, there's no dress code. Please feel free to take your jacket off and just try to be comfortable as you're here. You know, or if there's a sound, like when the band started playing, I just said, well, it looks like somebody's already getting their party started, you know, and partly why do we do this? If you notice any of these things happening, everyone else notices them too. And trying to act like they are not happening is actually more distracting than acknowledging that it's happening and bringing everyone's attention back to what's happening. So I might say, oh, you know what? There was like one wedding, it was like in a public place and there was these people like peeking in the fence to like see what was happening. And I said, oh, you know, see, we're so popular and your love is so great. Even folks, strangers are wanting to come, you know, and bask in your love, right? And so you're making a joke, everyone can acknowledge, hey, that's a weird thing that's happening. And then we're going to bring our attention back to the main event, which is focusing on the couple. And yeah, those people are still standing there, but we've acknowledged them. We can move forward with the ceremony. And the only time it's really hard is there's been times when I've been praying or having a moment of silence and the sound has happened. In those moments, sometimes I may just continue subtly, but it's your call on how you want to handle that. And again, as a master of ceremony, what I always say is to tell your participants what to do. Don't expect them to remember. Again, this is a wedding. This is not a play. People will forget. Even if you have a rehearsal, you'll be lucky if they remember what time to show up and where they're going. That's really the purpose of the rehearsal, right? People know the directions of where they're headed. Okay, they're not going to remember stuff. So I just put things in my script. These are examples. I'm going to ask you each 3 questions. If you can, please answer by saying, I do. That's the cue. This is when you say I do, you know, or whatever the answer to the question is. If you're having maybe a bride who's being given away by her father or other escort, thank you for accompanying your daughter or the bride's name down the aisle. Please embrace her and greet your future son-in-law. So just telling them what they're supposed to do at that moment, right? They're supposed to hug their daughter and then come and shake hands with the gentleman. Please take your groom's left hand in yours. And as you place the ring on his finger, please repeat after me. Again, the cue of what to do with their hands and what to do with their words. And maybe I might say, I invite Tim, the best man, to come forward and share a reading from 1 Corinthians, or whatever it is. Again, Tim knows, oh, that's my name, that's my cue. I'm going to come up and do my reading, right? He doesn't have to listen for my last word is going to be this. Why would he remember what your last word's going to be before his reading? That's absurd, right? So just tell them what they need to do when they need to do it. And if they forget, just calmly walk them through what they're supposed to do. So a little bit on wedding stagecraft before we open up for questions. This is kind of, again, how is public speaking a little different than wedding officiating? So one thing you have to think about is if you're going to use a printed script or electronic, what's going to be your means of reading? You're going to use note cards. I use myself a binder. I actually have it here. I've gone through a couple of different ones, but I just have this binder here. It opens up, has some pockets, and I have the sheets in there. I 3-hole punch them, and I have size 16 font, so I can read it very easily. But what's your style? Processional. I always say, and I stand by, processional is the most complicated part of the entire wedding ceremony. It's got the most people involved usually. You might have some, because you have the individuals who are walking in, but you have musicians maybe, or a DJ, you've got songs, there's a bouquet, there's the parting, what are they going to do, where is everyone sitting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you really want to make sure you have this dialed in, which is knowing what songs are playing when, who's playing them. Is it a musician? Is it the DJ? Does the DJ or musician need a cue from you? What's the order the participants are walking in? Are some of them going to be seated? Are some of them going to be standing? And then where are they going to be standing? Is the bride or groom doing this parting or blessing when they get to the end of the aisle? Or do they want to just do what most of my brides and grooms do, which is a kind of a silent giving away, where they have a moment with their parents, but the music's playing and there's no kind of giving away? Will the participants sit? If so, will they be sitting in the front row? If your couple is working with a coordinator, some of this may be handled, but if they're not, they may not have any of this. And so I have some cheat sheets I use to work with my couples on this. You want to get familiar with different types of microphones, including videographer and clothing choices. So ladies, one thing that's often interesting, lapel microphones are built for men with jackets and button-up shirts on, and with pants and a belt. I usually wear dresses. And so what I do is I clip the battery pack for the microphone lapel mic on the back of my dress at the top, with the battery pack facing in, and then I wind the cord up and maybe tuck it into the corner of my dress. If I have a videographer microphone too, sometimes it might mean I have another lapel microphone, and I might either have to hold it if it doesn't have a clip and just kind of manage it, or if I have a jacket pocket, I can put it there. So just things to be aware of. Be a hero, have some tissues on hand so you can give them to the couple if they start crying, and they can dab their eyes, and you'll be like so prepared. For me personally, I wear neutral colors as the officiant, so navy, black, mainly solid colors, no patterns. And I tell my couples, like, if you don't tell me to wear something special, I'm going to wear what I usually wear. You can find me on Instagram and see if you like it. And if it's something I have to buy, you're paying for it. I've never had anybody have me wear something that I needed to purchase anything for. Thinking about the rings, who's going to hold the rings? Who's going to have them? Will you hold them? Will you have the couple receive the rings from the person who's giving them? Will the groom have them? Will the best man? Just thinking about these moments. And then lastly, step away before the kiss. So you can see in this picture to the right, you can see me off to the side there, but I'm not centered in the picture of their first kiss as husband and wife. I'm going to just skip to really just quickly hear some information about officiant coaching. If you're just getting started out and you want to know more than what I've been able to share in these 15, 20 minutes, you can work with me as a coach. And so it could be with the couple that you're working with, that you and I work together. So the 4 of us, having a consultation, all 4 of us, to kind of build out the ceremony outline, and then, a time with just you and me to do kind of stagecraft and writing training. You also have templates and editing. And if you just want to work with you and me together, that's a bit of a break. So it's only $300, and we'll have those 2 90-minute sessions, but it'll just be the 2 of us. And then also, if you're looking more to have someone help partner with you as you're building out your business, I'm definitely happy to work with you on what topics you'd like and how many sessions you want. And there's reduced rates if you have multiple sessions in your package. And then there's ways you can find me on the internet. You can book a free consultation if you're interested right on my website, and you can at least get to know me a little more, and we can get started working together if we decide to do that. So with that, I'll stop sharing and I will hand it back over to Marissa and Jessica.
Awesome, Rachel. Thank you so much. That was great. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and hop right into the Q&A. So for this Q&A, if you guys have a question for Rachel, go ahead and raise your virtual hand, which will be in the reactions tab, and then we'll call on you. So who has questions, if any? Okay.
We like to know about the papers, to sign the papers, when and how. We get the papers to sign to confirm the wedding.
So that's going to vary by state. Good question. That's like how you make it legal. That's going to vary greatly by state. So I would hesitate to tell you what you need to do because I've only worked primarily in California and did one wedding in Ohio. And I did sign one Texas marriage license, all of which were quite different, I will say. So you're really going to want to learn what you need to do in your state. And I think AMM has some great resources, I think breaking down for each state, I believe. Thanks for sharing that. I do want to go to some other folks. So maybe is Larry next, or were you Larry?
I'm Larry. Just what the book was again? That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking it up on my Amazon little account. So I will put that in the chat as soon as I want to make sure I get the name right for you. But I believe it's called Writing Your Own Wedding Ceremony. Are you there, Donna?
There I am.
Donna?
Hi. My question is probably a little bit of a piggyback off the prior one, but the signing of the license, I guess my question would be, should it be done by the couple within the ceremony before you let them go so that it's done and you don't have to chase them after the fact?
That to me is
state by state.
That is, as far as I know, that would be just really a preference between yourself and the couple.
Okay.
I would say, I would say primarily if the majority of the time I sign it after. So you just want to, what I do is I just work through the couple who their witnesses are, or depending on what is required in the state, I ask them if they want to make a moment in California. So this is California. So whoever watches this later, this is California. Typically, if you have a public license, you need 2 witnesses and your officiant to sign it. The couple does not need to be present, because the couple has already signed the marriage license. Again, that's California.
Okay.
And so in California, I say, do you want to make a moment of it and be with your witnesses, or do you want me to just get the license signed with your witnesses? Because once the ceremony is done, the witnesses have witnessed it. And so then they can sign the license and I can sign it. So again, you want to know what's happening in your state. Having folks sign during the ceremony can either be a great moment. I do that sometimes with my smaller, especially elopements and things like that, and mini-monies. But it's not necessarily the most sexy thing, depending on how much information you have to fill out. And you don't want people being scared that they're going to mess up and having the nerves of being on stage doing it. So you just want to kind of calibrate that.
Thank you. Point.
Okay. Yeah. And then Barbara Higgins.
Hey there, that was great. I really enjoyed your presentation. This is my first time. This is my niece that I'll be officiating her marriage. I met with her and her fiance last weekend, and they said that they're going to do their vows privately before the ceremony. So how does that work? I mean, how do I handle that part of it?
So again, I'll speak for California. At least in California, you need to at least commit to verbally to marrying each other, like agree that you're marrying each other before your witness and your officiant. So I have a lot of couples who do their vows privately. And when they say that to me, what they usually mean is that they are going to do the vows they've written uniquely for each other privately. And I say, that's great. During the ceremony, you can use what I call tried and true vows, which could be, I've even shortened to where it's just the declaration of intent. So the I do part that you say there, where I'm asking them questions and they're saying, yep, that's what I'm doing. I'm getting married. I make sure that I have the words husband and or wife or marriage or something in there. They can also use like repeat after me vows, like the more traditional as well, or a combination thereof. So they do need to, again, in California, before myself and the witnesses agree to verbally marry each other, but they can certainly share their vows privately ahead of time. Does that help?
Okay, great. Yep, that helps a lot.
Great. Lisa?
Hello, I'm actually here in Elk Grove. So
Oh, great.
I'm not that far from you, but I wanted to know because I signed up, I became a wedding officiant with the MMA in December, and I haven't done anything. I haven't really marketed. But what would you, like, what's your suggestion on someone who's never done the ceremony before? Like, what should we, like, the price range we should charge? Because I see, you know, a lot of, at least in this area, I see, you know, between $400 and maybe $600. And I don't have that experience yet, so I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah. You know, there's both, there's a couple of ways I'll answer it. One is to say, like kind of what you said, the Knot, and which is now Wedding Pro, put out great information regarding kind of median prices sometimes. So when I first started, I think the average or the median was like between $300 to $600 for an officiant. So that's kind of where I kind of put my pricing in the beginning. And so you could decide to kind of peg it to the market. Since that time, I've broadened my prices where I both have like some that are at the lower end and some are at the higher end and kind of in between. And so when I very, very first started, I was like super cheap because I was using the strategy of I want to be lower cost and then I want to raise my prices. Now, some folks will advise you against that to say like, oh, if you start too low and then raise your prices later, you know, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole theory there. But the difference with wedding officiating is your customer is typically a one and done customer. So if you charge them $300 today, it's not like a month later or 2 years later, you're going to charge that same customer a different amount because they've already used your services. So you have a little bit of flexibility. Again, there's different philosophies around that. So I took the philosophy of like, I did one wedding. I didn't feel confident asking people for $600, you know, because I didn't know that much. But as I've gained more experience, you know, I've increased my prices. So hopefully that helps you. And again, that figure of 300 to 600 is from, you know, 7 years ago. So you might add some inflation to that. And things have only gotten more expensive here in California for sure.
One last question. Thank you.
Mhm.
Can I go to your website and book like some time for training with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you will do first is there's going to be book a free consultation is what you'll see. And that'll give us like a 30-minute intro session. And I can kind of do an intake with you, learn a little bit more about what you're interested in, kind of your details, who you are. And then we could kind of set up what kind of training package you wanted, you know, what you were interested in. We can make sure we get that adjusted for you. So yeah,
Okay.
officiallyhitched.com and just do book a free consultation. It'll be kind of geared towards couples. So some of the questions won't apply to you, but you should be able to skip them.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Renisha?
Hi, thanks. My question was, do you ever keep in touch with any of your clients, or is it more like a once and done kind of thing?
It's a great question. So, you know, it varies. So certainly a couple of things where it's like keeping in touch, which is like social media, following people on social media. So just the other day I had a couple, like it was Mother's Day. And so they posted a picture of their son and like, it was so cute and like little videos and things. And there's some couples that, you know, maybe we're more interactive with each other than others, just kind of depends on our connection that we have. I had another bride reach out to me and did her wedding maybe 3 years ago. And she reached out to me out of the blue. It's so funny because I just had thought about her and her husband actually, and we're going to get together. So it just really depends on the connection that I have with folks. If it's an authentic friendship, you know, keep nurturing that. And then, and I love following people on social media. It's like at least a little window kind of into their future and their present. And then the other thing I added to my services is coaching. So I do life coaching in a different couple domains, both like career-wise and kind of executive. Added relationship coaching. So it could be post-marriage, could be pre-marriage, could be pre-engagement. And it could be for the couple or just, you know, one of the partners, because maybe they're just dealing with something in life and they, you know, you build up a friendship, you understand a little bit about who they are at least. And so they have some rapport there. So I'm experimenting with that and still working to grow. I have a couple, I have people who will even do the coaching premarital who aren't even going to have me as their officiant, but that's something that they wanted to have. So I'm looking forward to that being another avenue that I can stay in touch. And maybe lastly, I'll say one of the things I'm toying with is, you know, since I've built up, you know, 7 years, 8 years, going on 8 years of clients in the Bay Area, having some events and some kind of community building events for folks who are married, newly married. One of my friends and I were joking around how hard it can be to make friends. We call it couple friends, where it's neither your friend nor your partner's friends. It's a couple that you meet together and all together the four of you are friends. And so I was like, oh, maybe there's an opportunity there to create more community amongst folks than just kind of the one-to-one relationship or 1 to 2 relationship I have with an officiant. But it's a great way to meet people. And I love all my couples. So I'm happy to hear from any of them when I can. Is it Kendria? Did I get your name right?
Yes. So question, it being like my first time, the couple isn't doing a rehearsal. So what would be your recommendation or tip for being like getting somewhat familiar? Is there a time that's too early? Like I see a standard, like people only go so, 30 minutes or, so far in advance, but is there like a recommendation that you would suggest?
In terms of, and this is, so they're not doing rehearsal and sorry, can you repeat it? They're not doing rehearsal and you want them to come early? Is that what you're saying?
No, so
you
like
to come
me
early.
go, yeah, is there like a time that's like too early? Like because like the first time that I would be doing it and the venue, not knowing the venue or people,
Yeah.
like what would be your tip for that?
And is this going to be your first wedding?
Yes.
Okay. I would definitely try to say 45 minutes early would be my recommendation to you. And a couple of things you're going to want to do. So if any of you are first timers and also not having rehearsal or even having rehearsal, like what to look for. You're going to want to you're going to get there early so you can park. You can, again, do things calmly, like you're not rushing. You're going to want to take a look at where you'll be standing at the venue. Like where is the location of the ceremony and where will you be standing? Do you know if they have a coordinator or if there's a venue coordinator or anyone?
Yeah.
So you might check with them to say, especially if they work at the venue, if they've worked the venue for, say like, hey, where's the couple going to stand? Where am I standing? If they're going to have bridesmaids and groomsmen standing beside them, just get a sense of like the physicality of it. So you have a sense of where you'll be. If there is sound, you'll want to get checked in with the microphone again, whether you have a lapel microphone. And I will say this is my little speech on microphones. Okay. Lapel microphones. They're great because you get to have your hands free. You don't have to hold anything. They are not great in windy outdoor conditions. If you have a good sound technician and it's windy, they should have a handheld microphone, which could be cordless or wired for you to use. If I have to use a microphone I love it to be on a stand, so I don't have to hold it, but I've been in situations where I've had to hold the microphone in one hand and hold my book in the other. So you want to just be able to practice that if you have to do that on the fly. Best microphone I've ever had is one of those cool over the ear ones that celebrities have for singing, like Britney Spears uses when she's dancing on stage, but not many people have that one. So you want to get checked in with the sound, do a sound test, make sure you can be heard, check in with the videographer, check in with the couple, let them know you're there, and then make sure they have their vows, make sure the rings are accounted for and any other props or anything that those are in place. And then you can do all this with plenty of time to use the restroom, drink some water, and maybe read through the script aloud for yourself. So I would say your first time, 45 minutes, maybe even an hour early, just to make sure you don't add stress to yourself. Does that help?
Thank you. Thank you
Great.
so much.
Of course. I'm going to put in the chat the book title. I finally found it. Just had to figure out how to use Amazon. And this is, again, a digital book that you can get. I don't even know if they actually make copies of it. I think it might just be digital. Okay. And Mary, is it Wretch?
I'm going to go ahead and just jump in real
Oh,
quick.
yeah,
I'm so sorry. There are a couple questions in the chat. The first one is rehearsals. How do you feel about rehearsals? There's someone who's asking, a bride wants to know if it's super necessary, not that necessary. What do you think?
I would say it depends. My favorite answer. I think that who is the rehearsal for? The rehearsal is for the participants of the wedding to know where to go, when to go there, and what they're doing, some idea of what they're doing. For me, rehearsals are an add-on. You either have to add it on, it's extra, or it's only part of the most expensive package. Now, does that mean that they shouldn't have a rehearsal? There's two questions. Should they have a rehearsal and should you be at the rehearsal, which are actually two different questions. I would say if they're having a wedding party of any size, they should have a rehearsal. If it's just like the bride and groom and their parents doing the processional, they probably don't need a rehearsal. Should you be at the rehearsal? In my case, it's like, yes, if they're willing to pay for it. But also if it's complicated. I'm also very experienced. So I've done a lot of weddings. So not as necessary for me anymore. So if you're early on, probably go to the rehearsal, maybe include it in your price. It'll give you some good experience and you'll get to walk through things. You'll also learn things from the venue coordinator or their wedding coordinator. on how to do it. And so I would advise for couples to have a rehearsal if they have more than just themselves involved in the processional. If they have like a reader, if they're doing a sand ceremony, candles, whatever, during that, they need to practice that and rehearse that. Should you be there? Probably if you're beginning, many of you are starting out, I would say yes. And as you get more experience, you may not need to have it as much. What are some other questions in the chat? Sorry, thank you for interrupting.
Oh, no worries. Another one which kind of ties into what you're just talking about. Do you have different rates based on how much you need to do for a ceremony, or do you tend to have a flat rate or a package?
Yes, I have 4 different packages in addition to the coaching ones I talked about. And so my rates range from, if you're getting married at San Francisco City Hall, which is around the corner from my house, you can get married for as little as $300. You could have a bespoke and custom ceremony for $1,300 or $1,388. So that's like my primo package, and then I have 2 packages in between. So I offer a range of prices, and then I also have a range of times. So for me, because this is not my primary job, it's not my only thing, I've got to the point where I like my Saturdays and Sundays. And so I'm not going to get out of bed and reserve my Saturday and Sunday for you if you just want to get eloped. Like, that's great, but that's not, you don't need me for that. You can use someone else to marry you. And so on weekends during the peak season, I only offer my 2 more intense packages, and those are going to be the bespoke. You're going to get a custom made 100% every word written for you, unless I'm using a poem or something. You're going to have her made to measure, which is going to be kind of a mix of like something that's very personalized and highly tailored, but it's not custom made. You're going to have our ready made and our SF special, which are going to be script based. So the couple's going to choose the script they like the best. With ready made, they're going to get some customization and personalization. With the SF special, what you see is what you get. That is what we are saying. You can take anything out if you want. If you want to add anything, you've got to write it yourself, but it's really kind of the set it and forget it option.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I was wondering, you said that you do coaching, and did you go through anyone specific to get your coaching training?
Yes. So I would say for like business coaching and the officiant coaching, that's based on my experience. And so that's really just my experience that I'm bringing to the work. And it's much more kind of hands-on and tutorial-like versus like life and relationship coaching. For the life and relationship coaching, I did the Academy of Creative Coaching, which I love because everything was remote, really good, really thorough. It's a women-led and company owned and led by Black women, which is important to me to have that perspective in coaching. And I love it and really would highly recommend it to anybody who's considering coaching.
All right, thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? We have some time left. And I don't know if we have any other questions in the chat that we want to do. I can also go into detail about any of these specific topics if anybody wanted more topics or wanted more information on, like I could talk through processional, I could show you my website and how I set up my business. Jill.
So one of the questions I'm curious about is, where do you get contracts? Did you just write up your own contract, or did you buy a contract, or did you get an attorney to write it for you?
Good question. So I did kind of a combination of things. I think I maybe looked at some contracts I had signed, did some Google, like internet research, if you can call it that, and kind of, I think maybe looked at contracts that like I've signed for services, like if you've ever hired a photographer, or if there's any kind of like service like that you've ever hired, maybe take a look at that. And then I kind of put together a draft. And then I bought an hour with a legal Zoom lawyer, which I believe is still a company that's around. And so they just kind of sat with me for an hour, looked over my contract, and kind of added some things or recommended some things. And then that's what I've been using since 2017, really. So for quite a while. I recently did some contracts I have some subcontractors that I work with. And so with that one, I looked at a contract where I was the subcontractor, and I kind of just read through it, and also a California-based company. So it was easy for me to kind of use that as a guide to make my first contract for my subcontractors. I see a question about advertising. This is an interesting topic. When I first started my business, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to do a bunch of outreach to planners and do a bunch of like stuff. I was like getting ready to do a mailer, like old fashioned, and I had signed up for a couple online, what I would call like aggregator sites that aggregate demand to kind of, connect people with vendors. And so I signed up for Thumbtack. I'm on the Knot. I'm also on Wedding Wire. At the time, I was on the Offbeat Bride. I have a Yelp page. I have Facebook. I have Instagram. I have Google. So Google My Business is super important and also free. So that's nice. And so I get leads from all of those sites. My very, very first client that I ever booked was from Thumbtack. Since then, I'm not the biggest fan of that website for various reasons, which I can go into at a later time. But most of my business comes from online. I'm building out more relationships now with past coordinators to get more referrals. And I'm also working a lot with photographers to get referrals. And if you think about places where couples go, almost like 97 or like 96% of couples have a venue and they have a photographer. So if you want people to refer them to you, only like 30% have an officiant, especially depending on where you live. Some parts of the country, people are more connected to religious communities, so they're not really going to be hiring an officiant. California, we have a lot of people hiring officiants, so it's probably a little higher. But if you want referrals, venues and photographers are going to be the top two places where, and only 30% of couples have coordinators too. So it's kind of in line with officiants. Great. Another great source for referrals, because once they like you and they know you, it's great. But the photographer is going to meet more couples than the coordinators are going to. Thomas.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. My question is, I spent a lot of time, I've been executive chef for many years in different places, Atlantic City, Bahamas, so on and so forth. But my first wedding was for my niece and her wife. And they chose me because of my voice and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But in trying to get back into this type of business, the one lady had recommended that go to hotels and get on a vendor list. Is that something that's possible?
Yeah, I would say hotels, but again, any venue that does weddings, so it's gonna be hotels, wherever you are here in the Bay Area, we've got a lot of vineyards, just other places where people have weddings. Often they do have preferred vendor lists. So trying to get on there, they may have requirements, they may just put you on, they may need an officiant, that's great. There's also the, depending where you're located, there's a WIPA, which I'm forgetting what the acronym stands for, but it's like Wedding Industry Professional Association, I think. I know they have chapters in different places.
Okay.
It's a great place to go. But yeah, getting on those lists would be awesome. I think that's a great strategy.
Yeah, where I live, I go down the street, I can see the skyline of New York City.
Yeah, well then you've got a city chock
Up
full
in
of
the
vendors, so
Yeah.
you're gonna be printing money over there.
Yeah.
So I want to just go back to the chat because I know I see a couple questions there before we go to you again, Donna. Tell us about our first wedding. The first wedding I did was for Dan and Melissa, that couple that I showed in the beginning. They were two of my friends who were getting married and asked me to officiate. It was in the summertime, outdoors in Berkeley, in the kind of this wonderful regional park, and they had it in the morning because they were saving money, so it was like at 10 a.m. And so it was like funny. We were like having the ceremony and then like lunch and then dancing like in the morning time, which was kind of fun. And then for the recommendations for advertising for services, I think if you're just starting out and you don't want to spend money, Google is a great one because it's free. Also, Yelp is free. There are others, like I'm on the Knot and Wedding Wire, which is great for the reviews it has, but it can be quite pricey. I will say it is not cheap to be on Wedding Wire or the Knot. And so I would start out maybe with cheaper, and then Thumbtack, even though it can be expensive, you pay per lead versus paying a monthly amount. So you can kind of set a budget that could be a little lower, and you can increase your budget, as you have more income and as you have more success. I did put a link to my website in the chat, and also thank you, Lucille, for also putting it there. And so because most couples find me on the internet, that's how they're Googling, they're looking up, find wedding officiant, find DJ. I mean, that's how a lot of folks are doing wedding planning, is like searching and finding folks. Really focused on my my website. And so some of the things that I did that I think helped me stand out, have a lot of visuals. So that's why this is my hero image, is this is my first wedding. So it was the first professional photo I had of myself doing the wedding. Now, if you don't get that, you can also stage things, right? Maybe you can stage some things. I think photos, it's worth like doing a photo shoot to get some pictures. I also have people who can call me directly. I have a Google Voice number. They can come on here and book a free consultation. So if any of you want to book a consultation with me, this is your box. They can send me the date to see if I'm available. This is the coaching package. They can do relationship coaching here. And so then you can see even this one, this I was just doing actually headshots, and this couple was getting married at this location behind us. So I just was like, oh, let's like put them in the background. And I had this great image. Again, I had done only one wedding, but this looks like I'm like some pro, right? My package and my pricing is clear. I found, at least in my research, a lot of officiants in my area did not have clear pricing. It was like, contact me so I can tell you how much it is. And like, I don't know about you, but like, I want to know the price. Like, what is the price? Can I afford this? Okay, then I'm going to move forward. Just some vagueness is not helping me. I'm not doing that. You can contact us here, and then you can see examples of our work, the scripts here. So if you're interested in looking at some example scripts, you can find a ton here. Go ahead, have at it. You know, imitation is the highest form of flattery, so please borrow anything you need. And then I have videos. So I was really lucky. The venue of this video, this is my first wedding I ever got hired for. They recorded it and sent me a copy. And then this coordinator was nice enough that she videoed the whole thing and then she sent me it. So I think those are both free. And I cannot tell you, I think, how important those have been for people hearing your voice, seeing how you are. They're hiring you for your presence. And so them getting a little glimpse of it is really, really nice.
Okay, I
And,
do think with that, we are about at time. So I think we'll go ahead and close the Q&A for now. Thank you so much, Rachel. That was amazing. So let's go ahead and see. Before we head out, Jessica has been adding links to the chat, and there's a PDF to talk for you guys to take with you. This file does have more information on public speaking for officiants and details on how to contact Rachel. If you have any more questions, I'm sure you do. So if you enjoyed tonight's event, consider attending our in-person networking and education seminar in Chicago next month. So for those of you who are in Chicago, that's definitely something you'll want to keep an eye on. That event features multiple speakers, panel discussion, breakout sessions, and a happy hour. So it's a great opportunity to network and to learn from other officiants in June. So you'll find a link to that event in the chat as well. And thank you all. Thank you so much, Rachel. Round of applause virtually for Rachel.